Today we're flying beyond the sun to Space Station Phoenix. Thanks for joining me at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp. Today I'm looking at 2 space-themed games published by Rio Grande Games. Now both of these review copies were provided by the publisher. I'll give a quick overview of each of them and then compare them. First up is Beyond the Sun, designed by Dennis Chan. It's a tech tree worker placement game for 2 to 4 players that takes about an hour to 2 hours to play. Throughout the game, you take actions to do a number of things, including research new technology, which opens up new action spaces. You can also build, upgrade, and fly your ships on the exploration board to control and colonize systems. Doing this will increase your resource production. Like many games, your goal is to earn the most points. You can do that by researching technology, controlling and colonizing systems, and completing achievements. Now here's a quick look at Space Station Phoenix, designed by Gabriel Kahn. It's a worker placement resource management game for 2 to 4 players that takes about 1 to 2 hours to play. You start the game with lots of ships representing your action spaces and a small space station hub. As the game goes along, you'll be dismantling your ships to get the resources necessary to build your station. Once you have station pieces, you'll need humans and aliens to occupy them. Occupied station sectors can give you special benefits when you take certain actions, or produce more resources when you take income. Your goal is to earn the most points. I know those descriptions were super quick, and I'll go into more detail as I compare and contrast the games. I'll start by saying that I've enjoyed both of these games, and I'm glad that both are in my collection. They hit my medium to medium plus complexity sweet spot. The obvious similarities are that both are space-themed and involve worker placement, but each game handles the worker placement differently. In Beyond the Sun, you have an action pawn that you move to unoccupied spaces. To take actions on level 1, 2, or 3 technologies, you'll need to have researched that tech. As the game goes on, you have access to a greater number of actions and more powerful actions. Space Station Phoenix is the opposite, though. You start out with all the actions available, basic ones and more advanced. But to use an action, you have to pay gems, which blocks the action from being used again. You can even use other players' actions, but you'll have to pay additional gems to the ship's owner. Your used action spaces remain blocked until you take an income turn, which wipes the gems off all your ships. As the game goes on, the number of action spaces decreases as players dismantle ships to gain resources. So in Beyond the Sun, your options increase as the tech tree grows. In Space Station Phoenix, your options decrease, but hopefully your engine has become more powerful so you can get more out of each action. Game structure is also different in the 2 games. In Beyond the Sun, your turn has 3 phases: take an action, produce, and then claim an achievement if you have the necessary requirements. When the game end is triggered, you finish the current round and play 1 more. In Space Station Phoenix, you have 2 main options on your turn: take an action or take income. Choosing when to take income is a strategic decision, since it opens up all your ships not only for yourself, but also for your opponents. At the end of your turn, you check to see if the end game has been triggered. If it has, every other player gets 1 more turn. Both games have a ramping up feel with your resource production. In Beyond the Sun, you unlock production as you control and settle systems on the exploration board. Although your production can fluctuate as you lose control of systems or max out on population. In Space Station Phoenix, you gain more resource production as you build and populate your space station. Income turns in later rounds can be very rewarding. Variability is something that I enjoy in games. I like trying new strategies and puzzling out how to optimize different setups. Both of these games have a good amount of variability. I mean, just look at the number of cards and pieces. Beyond the Sun has random events and technologies, so the tech tree will be different each time. The system cards are also dealt randomly, and 2 of the 4 achievements are random. In Space Station Phoenix, you only play with a few of the ship cards, station hubs, and sectors each game, so there will be lots of different combinations. Also, the aliens are randomly drawn during setup, so their exact numbers will vary from game to game. For asymmetry, you can use the advanced factions in Beyond the Sun for varied production tracks and individual player powers. The technologies you choose to research will further diverge your strategies. Space Station Phoenix has more asymmetry. Each player chooses a hub, which determines starting resources and individual player powers. You also draft 4 advanced ships, which give specialized action spaces. Other players can use them, but they'll have to pay you gems. Each space station sector is unique, so as you build your station, your powers and benefits will be different from the other players. One of the big differences between these games is the amount of known information at the beginning. In Beyond the Sun, you need to be versatile and adjust your strategy as events are revealed and new technologies are chosen. In Space Station Phoenix, all the action spaces and available space station pieces are determined during setup, so you can plan out your strategy. But there's still the other players to worry about. I had my eye on a certain piece, but Kevin bought it before I was able to, so I had to go in a different direction. As far as player interaction goes, both games have an aspect of denying other players access to action spaces and beating others to a goal or a specific piece. Beyond the Sun also has the area control on the exploration board. You're vying with the other players to control and eventually colonize the system. This interaction feels more direct. Space Station Phoenix has a diplomacy board with tracks corresponding to the different actions. As you climb the tracks, you gain benefits anytime someone takes that action. So you're invested in what other players are doing on their turns, and even how your turn could help others. There's also a bit of competition on the tracks. If you're higher than the other players, you have options for more rewards. In one of our games, I was doing really well on a particular track, then Kevin came up, and as soon as he shared my space, I lost access to one of the rewards. It was actually the reward I was super interested in. Both games do have some randomness, and Beyond the Sun, it's the event cards and the unknown nature of which technologies you'll draw. For a less random game, you can play with the technology tableau board instead of drawing technologies from the deck. In Space Station Phoenix, you roll dice when you take the expedition action. The card will show you how many dice to roll and how many you keep. You could get resources, points, or the ability to gain a human. So I had a power that let me roll and keep extra dice, so I used the expedition action a lot. I usually got helpful things, but I did have one roll where all 9 dice were water. I'm not sure what the odds are of that. I think the components for both games work well. They're not super deluxe or super cheap. For Beyond the Sun, I especially like the double-layered player boards that help keep your tokens in place. The dice are not actually used as dice. They keep track of your population and ship strength. They're never rolled. Space Station Phoenix has a mixture of wooden and plastic components. I appreciate that the aliens are not only different colors, but also shapes. I also like that the space station sectors connect to each other. Both games do take up a lot of table space. We have 2 large tables at our house, so it hasn't been an issue for us. Overall, I think both games are really good with interesting decisions to make. They can look a bit intimidating at first with all the pieces and variability in the setup, but once you understand their iconography and basic actions, it's relatively easy to take turns. The tricky thing isn't knowing what you can do, it's what you should do. For me, Space Station Phoenix was a bit easier to learn. There's a quick guide and a player board that has lots of helpful information and reminders. Like I said at the beginning, I enjoy both games and would be happy to play them anytime. If I had to choose one over the other, I'd pick Space Station Phoenix. I really like building my own space station with benefits and combos that only apply to me. I also generally like less direct interaction in games. So I'd recommend Beyond the Sun for players who enjoy tech trees, resource management, and the direct interaction that comes with area control. I'd recommend Space Station Phoenix for players who enjoy asymmetry, building things, resource management, and chaining benefits. So what do you think about these games? What are some of your other favorite space games? Let me know in the comments. I've also enjoyed Pulsar 2849, Race and Roll for the Galaxy, Beta Colony, Space Base, and tons of others. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.